Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alexis Tigba, and I'm an analyst with Nextier Power. It is my honor and privilege to welcome you to the May 2017 Nextier Power Dialogue. Our theme for the evening will focus on energy efficiency in Nigeria's real estate. Our goal is to provide an opportunity to network, share valuable ideas, and prefer pragmatic methods on improving energy efficiency in Nigeria. It is our aim that by the end of today, we are all better informed about the importance and benefits of energy efficiency and how we can incorporate it into our daily lives. This Power Dialogue edition is in collaboration with the Nigerian Energy Support Program, NESP. NESP is a technical assistance program that promotes investments in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and rural electrification. It is co-founded by the European Union and the German government and is jointly implemented by the Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing and GIZ. Without further ado, I would like to welcome our moderator for today, Mr. Patrick Okigo III.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome to the May 2017 Nextier Power Dialogue. As usual, the core objectives of these monthly dialogue sessions are to seek and share ideas on how to improve the power sector, advocate for policy implementation and improvement, and create networking opportunities. Over the last 12 months, we've covered a range of topics across the entire value chain. We've continued to publicly and also in private advocate for some of the ideas that originate from these dialogue sessions. Some have been implemented, some are still under consideration. Today, we're going to focus on smart buildings, energy efficiency in the Nigeria real estate industry. According to the National Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Policy, the government is looking to replace about 40% of the inefficient appliances by 2020. Some McKinsey report says that about 20% of current power supply can be saved by just minor changes in our behavior towards energy efficiency. These minor changes, if they save about 20% of our current supply, that's about 1,000 megawatts, which could, if we were to deploy this, mean that we spend about $1 billion, $1.5 billion. So that's how important this issue is. Like my colleague Alexis said, the Nigerian Energy Support Program is supporting this particular session, and their core mandate is to improve the conditions for the application of and investments in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and rural electrification. They are funded by the EU and the German government. NESP provided critical technical support to the Nigerian government in its efforts to develop the National Renewable and Energy Efficiency Policy. It has also played a critical role in pushing for the injection of more energy efficiency practices in the real estate development sector of Nigeria, which is why we're here today. Over the next 2 hours, we'll engage some of the best brains in this space to talk about or to have a rigorous discussion around the prospects, challenges, and solutions of energy efficiency in the real estate development sector. Permit me to do some quick introductions, and I'll invite them to join me on the stage. Dr. Susanne Giesler is a founder and CEO of Serra Energy Resources, which is based in Austria. Her firm has done a lot of work in the energy efficiency space and in integrating energy efficiency in real estate development. In Nigeria, she's worked very closely with the EU-funded Nigeria Energy Support Program to develop the policies and practices of energy efficiency in Nigeria. We're pleased to have her here today, and in a few minutes, we'll invite her to share with us a quick presentation on assessing the benefits of energy efficiency in the housing development space. But for now, a round of applause as we invite her to join me on stage. And Sandra Macham is the project coordinator for energy efficiency in buildings at the Nigeria Energy Support Program. In this role, she's responsible for driving the policy and practice of energy efficiency in Nigeria. She will also be presenting a short paper, very short, on policy considerations for energy efficiency for the housing sector. A round of applause for Ene. Dr. Andres Riza is the CEO of Prime Tech Design and Engineering Limited, a subsidiary of Julius Berger PLC. Most of us in the room know that Julius Berger is a leader in construction, but probably don't know that they're also leading in a lot of the work around energy efficiency in the design of buildings. Unfortunately, he can't join us today, but he sent a senior architect from Prime Tech, architect Tola Oyenuga, who's going to represent him here today. A round of applause for him. He's also going to speak on the practical applications of energy efficiency in Nigeria. But before we get into the discussion, it's my honor and privilege to invite Ina Omas, who is the head of program at the Nigeria Energy Support Program, to say a few words. Ina.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. And I was told by the organizers to keep it very short. I'm trying my best. On behalf of the Nigerian Energy Support Program, I would like to also thank all of you for attending this first joint power sector dialogue between NESP and Nextier. As we already heard, NESP is a program that's jointly funded by the European Union and the German government, and is jointly implemented by the Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing and German Development Corporation, GIZ. Whereas the program in its core activities is actually focusing on measures to advance the application of solar PV, both on-grid and off-grid in Nigeria, the approach on energy efficiency in buildings has been a bit different from the beginning. When we started the cooperation with the Ministry of Housing, it has been clear that energy challenges in the real estate development of Nigeria can only be tackled if dealt with holistically. This means that beyond the promotion of application of renewable energy as a resource for electrification and powering of buildings and switching to improved appliances such as efficient ACs, the quest has been to ensure that buildings are designed and implemented in a more efficient way. Last year, the Honorable Minister of Power, Works and Housing launched the Guideline on Energy Efficiency in Buildings. And this guideline is a guide to architects, builders and planners in the sector on what to consider if you want to embark on a more efficient road in how to build in Nigeria. This year we have supported the ministry in transferring this guideline into a code that is going to be launched soon. Together with the Federal Capital Territory of Abuja, the implementation of this code is being piloted into state levels. Defining thresholds for the energy consumption of buildings will have a huge impact on the energy-intensive building sector. Even simple design measures can lead to 40% more efficiency in newly built houses. This is important considering the current deficit of houses and apartments in Nigeria, which is estimated to be at about 16 million. In order to ensure that the efficiency measures in buildings can be applied, NESP embarked on a dedicated training approach for architects and builders that will grow Nigerian expertise on how to implement recommendations of the guideline and the code. Furthermore, we have developed 6 training courses to enhance expertise on green jobs, for instance, on solar technicians, mini-grid designers, or energy managers, and those trainings have been presented downstairs throughout the day in an educational fair, and I believe most of you have seen the training manuals, and you can also approach my colleagues here if you're more interested in those trainings. To ensure we do not end up with a code in our bookshelves, but actually achieve targets in the real estate sector, NESP looks forward to in future closely engage with the private building industry, architects and investors. We want, together with you, pilot efficient buildings in Nigeria. I would like to take this opportunity to warmly thank the housing section of the Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing for the very close and trustful relation that we have been able to establish. I would also like to thank Development Control Abuja for the good working relationship in testing implementation of the guideline and the code. I look forward to this power sector dialogue and want to thank Nextier Power for inviting us to cooperate on this very important topic. I wish all of you a very nice evening. Thank you.
The program would not be a success if there is no buy-in from the Nigerian government. And here to represent the PAMSEC of the Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing is Engineer Esther Okoa. She's the head of projects at the Federal Ministry. A round of applause for her, please.
Thank you very much. I welcome all of us here today and all protocols observed. I won't take our time taking us through the memory lane, but I want to start from September 2014 when the ministerial team on renewable energy and energy efficiency in building was instituted in the ministry. And in the same vein, we also have the Interministerial Committee on Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency in Building. And they have some terms of reference in common. One of them is to generate and recommend minimum standards required to achieve energy efficiency in building, and the other is to collaborate with necessary stakeholders to come up with building energy efficiency code. We have just done that. In the same vein, we have just been working on that. Like Ina said, the Energy Efficiency Guidelines for Nigeria was inaugurated in June 2016 by the Honorable Minister, Babatunde Raju Fashola, and it's creating energy efficiency building approach. It talks about specific microclimate condition of the site, improve building orientation, facade design, enhance natural ventilation, efficient lighting, and selection of insulating building materials. And the guide was distributed to the council members at the 2016 National Council of Land, Housing, and Urban Development for their information and guidance on issue of energy efficiency in building. And elements of energy efficiency in buildings are being incorporated in the ongoing National Housing Program nationwide. The development of the Nigerian Building and Energy Efficiency Code has also commenced in all earnest. A kickoff workshop was held in 2016, and a validation workshop was on the 9th of May 2017. The proposed BEEC consists of the following elements: minimum energy efficiency requirements and verification method, calculation method and tools, building energy labels and energy efficiency incentives, control and enforcement, qualification of experts, review and adaptation. The minimum energy efficiency requirement is to be incorporated in the National Building Code under the National Building Code under review. It's important to note that in Africa, the Building Energy Efficiency Code is in operation already in Egypt, Tunisia, and South Africa. It is not out of place to develop a BEC in Nigeria, being the giant of Africa. The Building Energy Efficiency Code is expected to be launched before the end of the year 2017. The federal government will also encourage its domestication in the various states of the federation. Recently, an energy audit of the Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing Block was carried out in collaboration with GIZ, and we are in the process of actualizing the energy management plan. It's a great privilege and a unique opportunity to make public some of the activities of the ministry and the interministerial team on renewable energy and efficiency in building. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Engineer Esther. And moving on very quickly, permit me to invite Dr. Susan to present her opening remarks.
Good evening. Thank you very much for inviting me. I will talk a little bit about benefiting from energy efficiency implementation and about the experience we have with energy efficiency and the benefits in Europe. In Europe, we have the energy efficiency targets by 2020. So when you ask me what about achievements of targets, will we achieve these targets? I'd say yes, we do. And regarding the benefits, achieving the target really benefited the European economy. Because energy efficiency targets are a driving force for development of new products and services. And I would like to explain this a little bit by giving a few examples from Austria, where I come from. Our domestic companies generate an annual turnover of around 32.6 billion euros through environmentally and energy efficiency-oriented products and services. So that's quite a lot. We use these products in Europe, in Austria, in Europe, to implement energy efficiency in buildings, but a lot of them also go into export. When we look at exports, which is one pillar of our economy, we have to say that in the past, export may be accounted for around 50% of the turnover in the mid-1990s. But now, with the energy efficiency policy in place, it is around 2/3. So that's quite an important pillar of our economy. In particular, those companies are leaders in export markets which produce technology to monitor the environment, technology for renewable energy, and measurement and control technology. However, product developments range from highly modern windows and doors to ventilation systems suitable for zero-energy buildings, and also energy supply systems like automated biomass heating and solar systems, so solar thermal hot water and also photovoltaics. It's not only about products, which means it's also about job creation. It's not only about products, but also new services have emerged, such as the energy services companies, in short, ESCOs. They help us to implement energy efficiency measures in existing buildings. So what is so special about the energy services companies? Differently from traditional energy consultants or equipment suppliers, ESCOs can also finance or arrange financing for the operation, and the remuneration is directly tied to the energy savings achieved. So they make a business out of energy efficiency. So when we go back to our 2020 targets, it's important to note that these targets were agreed many years ago. In my view, this is a key to success, to have well-planned long-term programs addressing basic research, product development, demonstration projects and pilots, and programs for mass rollout at the same time. In Austria, we had such a concerted effort. It started in 1999. So we look back on 17 years of research, product and services development and rollout. And I think that this concerted effort is a very important reason for success in terms of energy efficiency and also the related economic development. Meanwhile, the challenges have been changing and also the programs have been adapted. We do not talk about energy efficiency anymore, so this is what we regard as implemented and set. Now we talk about plus energy buildings, which means our target is now to achieve buildings which produce more energy than they consume. There is also another long-term target, which is to achieve a nearly carbon-free economy by the year 2050. So a really long-term target. And but I think we all need a vision to know where we want to go to. And this is where I want to close and be happy to answer your questions later.
Okay, good evening everybody, and thank you for having me here. I'm actually excited this evening because if I remember clearly, this is the first dedicated Nextier Power Dialogue on Energy Efficiency. Am I correct? Okay, so it's great that we are making headway here because I've always been asking, when are we going to talk about energy efficiency? It's important to understand that internationally it's been recognized that energy efficiency is actually the first fuel. So when we talk about increasing power supply, I think we need to take a step backwards and think about how do we actually manage the power that we have right now. Having said that, a lot of times when we come to the Nextier Power Dialogue, we always talk about maybe not sufficient gas to provide energy, or we need more power plants and there's no money to provide more power plants. But I think that we should also think a bit about what sectors actually consume a lot of energy. And research has shown that the residential sector in Nigeria consumes much more energy than the industrial sector. Having said that, it's important that we also begin to think about the building sector and how the building sector can contribute in reducing the energy consumption. And this is where the Nigerian Energy Support Program comes in, where we have been supporting the Federal Ministry of Power Works and Housing in improving the framework conditions for energy efficiency in buildings. I would like to talk about the benefits of energy efficiency in buildings for the country, which the first and foremost thing we have to look at is energy security. But for the people, for me and you, ordinary citizens, what would we be looking at? I think that's important for me as a person to think about energy efficiency because it actually makes me comfortable in my home. So energy efficiency is about reducing the energy consumption of your building, but in order to make you comfortable. So it's important that we do not just see energy efficiency as, okay, they want to save electricity, but about how do we feel in our buildings? How can we live in healthier and more comfortable buildings? Having said that, the comfort of a building is important, but we also need to look at other important aspects of energy efficiency, like job creation, for example. Susanne, an international expert, has talked about the Austrian experience and how that has benefited them a lot. So we also have to think about how Nigeria can also benefit from job creation. Lastly, I think it's also important that we talk about the cost savings. Like if you implement energy efficiency, you now have more savings in your pocket. For example, if you're charged a certain amount every month for your bills and you construct your building differently, it means the energy consumption for your building to reduce and then you have to pay less. So I think holistically, if we look at energy efficiency, we have a lot as a country to gain from it. Now, what have we been working on for the past, I think, 3 or 4 years? We have worked on 2 major policy support documents, which is the Building Energy Efficiency Guideline and the Building Energy Efficiency Code. The guideline was launched, as Ina mentioned earlier, in June 2016 at a high-level event. And the guideline basically just provides information to professionals in the building sector, like architects, engineers, on what to consider when you want to construct an energy efficient building. How should you deal with it? Because a lot of people think that energy efficiency is would I say, far-fetched or it's too complicated. So the guideline looked at breaking it down into different aspects that you should consider. But we also realized that the guideline is not enough. If you have information that helps you to construct an energy efficient building, what is the next step? And the code actually is the next step, a building energy efficiency code, which now regulates the consumption, the energy consumption of a building. Having said that, we last week did a validation workshop on the building energy efficiency code where a lot of stakeholders were present to discuss these legal requirements or regulatory requirements on the energy consumption of a building. But I mean, we have a lot of policies in the country, but implementation is actually the main issue. So beyond the policies and the implementations that we're working on, we're actually looking further to see how can actually these policies translate into concrete energy savings in the building sector and benefit Nigeria as a country. And this is where we're working with state government like the FCTA, the Development Control. They are responsible for approving building permits in Nigeria, to see how we work with them to pilot this building energy efficiency code in terms of implementation. So for example, how now do you regulate the people who submit, like architects or engineers, if they want to submit their buildings? How do you encourage them to ensure that their buildings are energy efficient? And I think that as a country, we must begin to think a bit more deeply into implementation, not only policy. So I'd like to stop there now, and I look forward to engaging with you all. Thank you very much.
I'm an architect at PrimeTech, and PrimeTech is a design and engineering firm owned by Julius Berger. The company, the parent company, Julius Berger, has been thinking for a while, and you know, as their position in the market, they're always looking into the future and making sure they are ahead of the market and ready to act when the market calls for that. So the company decided to build its own office building for Prime Tech in a sustainable way, designed and built like that. So it became a priority for the design team to achieve that in design, and also for the construction team to implement that. And as you have heard, about energy efficiency. Everything came about, for those that are not yet aware exactly how come we are talking about energy efficiency today. I would just like to stretch it back to how everything started. Scientists have agreed global warming is happening, and it's happening because we are consuming more of fossil fuel, and in consuming fossil fuel, and man-made activities are consuming fossil fuel. The largest amount of man-made activity consuming fossil fuel is building. And if we can reduce the amount of fossil fuel we are consuming in our building, then we can go a long way in building sustainable. We know our earth is finite. There is no other earth anywhere. This is the only one we have. We want to use it, and we want the people coming after us to be able to use it also. So we are back to energy efficiency. Since building accounts for the majority of the greenhouse gases which are released in consumption of fossil fuel, if we build in an efficient manner, then we begin to reduce the global warming. Now, if you look at the building, I'm giving you the background of this efficiency to see why Julius Berger as a company is thinking that way and then implementing it. So we're at the main concept of energy efficiency. If you take a building and you look into what components of the building is consuming the most energy, you find out that it's in air conditioning the space and in lighting the space. So if you look into it, if you want to solve problems, you always look for the biggest problem, solve it first, move to the next biggest problem, like that, till you get everything very efficient. That's what energy efficiency is about. So Julius Berger thought of that in this building, which is going to showcase their experience in construction, technology, design, and engineering, we should implement strategies to ensure energy efficiency. So the Prime Tech as a company was incorporated in 2011, and the design of the office building was carried out in 2012. Then construction of the building started end of 2012 to May 2014. And now I would like to tell you the practical applications of energy efficiency in our building using Prime Tech as a case study, but it applies to the Nigerian real estate, offices, and residential building. Now, you know, most of our building consuming energy is in the building sector. So now we've identified that in a building, in a typical building, the components that consume the most energy is the air conditioning and the lighting. So now what do we need to do to this building to ensure energy efficiency? There are two strategies. One is called passive means, and the next one is the active means. What it just means is typically you have a building, you want to reduce the energy it's consuming. You have only two options. Either you reduce the equipment consuming the energy, or you reduce the building. That's it. So, but in essence, if we now go into the details, what it means is you take the shell of the building. We are now talking about the passive means. You want to reduce what needs energy in cooling. So you take the shell of the building and you make it efficient. You improve the building envelope. You improve the walls, the windows, and the roof. Because why you need cooling is because there's heat in the room, and the heat is coming from somewhere. The only heat coming into the space is from the sun, except you are inside the volcano. But you get the gist. So we need to improve the building. And what we did in Prime Tech is to look at the shell of the building, and we insulated the roof of the building and the walls. That way, you reduce the heat, the energy demand to cool the space. And the next one after the roof is the glazing. In Prime Tech, we use double-glazed argon-filled, don't mind the word, double-glazed argon-filled insulated windows. And the reason why we chose that is we need windows. We need the light in, but we don't want the heat to come into the space. So that's why you use efficient windows. Once you do that, you've made your shell, the shell of the building, efficient, and you require less energy to keep the space cool and to light the space than you would have if you had built business as usual. So apart from lighting and insulating the windows and the roof to reduce the heat demand and increasing the performance of the window, the next thing you do is This is an office building. We use it during the day, and the sun is available during the day. Why not bring in as much light as you want and use the daylight as much as you want, so you reduce the energy you need to light up the space artificially? And that's why in the system, we have a lot of windows in the space and a whole curtain wall on the second floor, which you would get to see when one day you get to see the building. So you'll get to see the building. We would get to. That's why we are here networking, and you will get to see the building. It's available. It's around in Udu, close to AFP and Abumet. You might have passed by it. It's a white building. You see it. So, as I was saying, concerning that, now you've achieved a sealed building that is energy efficient, in that you don't need enough as much energy to cool it down. The next thing you have to do now is to go into the active means, which is improving the energy system. Now you've done the first part. You've improved the shell of your space. Now you need to go into the equipment cooling the space and the equipment lighting it. If you can make the equipment more efficient, that they need less energy to give you the same comfort you had, then we are making headway in energy efficiency. And that's to achieve that at PrimeTech. The main system, there are two. One for air conditioning. It's a chilled water system. It's a central system with the chilled water and the air handling unit. What is the main component in the system that reduces energy consumption is the heat exchanger. And the way that works is, imagine you have two bottles of water. One is cold and the next one is not. If you put them next to each other in any space, over time, the other one that is not cold will get cold, because it's next to it by conduction. So in the system of the HVAC, you have hot air coming out, you bring in fresh air, you cool it down and in the equipment, in the air handling equipment, and you push it into the offices. We don't recirculate the air. Once it's used, we push it out of the building. But that air that's used is still cool in itself. So we don't just throw out that cool air, we push it beside the next fresh air coming in. So it starts cooling the fresh air coming in before the equipment uses the energy to cool it further and then push it into the room. That's how the system works. That component alone is the key component that reduces the energy consumption of the air handling unit. It's not typical for air handling units to have that, but when you have it running very efficiently. The next one in the equipment is there are motion sensors in the offices and the spaces, whereby when there's no one in the space, the system automatically switches off the light and the air condition. And at the close of day, it does that automatically, switches off. Next morning, it switches on the system again. So you only consume energy when it is required, and when it's not required, the system is not running. So those are the two main strategies of achieving energy efficiency. Now that you know the strategies of achieving energy efficiency, what you need to know is, what do you need to do to achieve that energy efficiency in the building before and after construction? And what you have to do, the main thing, there are two. One is to approach the design in the integrated design option, in that at the concept stage, when you approach your architect, when he does your concept design for you and the block models and everything, he should be able to bring in his engineer, and at that level of sketching, they can simulate and tell you what the energy consumption will be. So from the basic design, you can start affecting, changing, modifying things, because the simulation has told you what the consumption will be later. And when you say, this is beyond what the budget, this is beyond the budget, or we can make this more efficient by tweaking the design, at that stage, it becomes easy for the construction. If you don't make your building efficient at the concept stage, it becomes more expensive down the design phase. This is the construction phases of the building. Because imagine at concept stage, you notice your windows are too large, and it's making your energy demand increase the sizing of the HVAC handling unit. If you notice that, what you could do, you could increase the performance of the glass. When you increase the performance of the glass, it reduces the energy you need to cool the space. Thereby, you can reduce the sizing of the mechanical equipment. The money, you might have to spend more on the glass, but you spend less on the equipment. You understand? And then, if you do that at design stage, it's easier. If you don't do that at design stage and you finish all your design, as is usually done, architect does the design, pushes it to engineers, and then they do their design, then they go to construct, and they notice the client, the forecast for his finances has changed, and he wants to reduce his equipment, and the building is already on 4th floor, going to 7th floor, and you now have to go back into redesigning. The cost of that modification of the design will be more than at the point of concept, where you can easily just do everything either on the system or by hand as required. You understand? That's why it's important to have an integrated design approach to energy efficiency. The next one, which is the easy one, is improve occupants' behavior, which you mentioned earlier. You know, you go to offices and sometimes you touch the door, the handle is cold because the person left the AC running overnight when he wasn't there, that kind of thing. So now that we're beginning to build sustainably or building energy efficient, we have to help the occupants to and improve their awareness so they use the building as design. If you don't use the building as design, then you knock off the benefits you should have gained from building efficiently. At PrimeTech, the sensors do that. They switch off the lights when nobody needs them, and also the staff, they switch off on their way out. Imagine if the sensor is supposed to switch off 30 minutes after you leave a space, and you switch it off on your way out, you save 30 minutes of energy. So thank you very much for your time. I hope to hear your questions afterwards.
So let's start the discussion probably from the beginning, right? So Anna, if you can just paint a broad picture for us of what are the key aspects of this energy efficiency policy. You know, what does it expect from government? What does it expect from the private sector power players? And what does it expect from us, you know, citizens? If you can just paint a broad stroke for us on the energy efficiency policy.
So I would just take a step back and say there's a renewable energy and energy efficiency policy, which was, I think, approved before the last government
2015.
left. Yeah, 2015. Yeah. And that policy basically highlights the importance of energy efficiency and renewable energy, as well as trying to ensure that targets such as developing a building energy efficiency code are in place. Having said that, in order to do that, at state level, we need a lot of buildings. We need the buildings approved at state level to be constructed in an energy efficient way. Now, in terms of the public, me and you, it means we need to understand how a building works. How do I think that the idea also is also asking ourselves, what actually should a building do for us? And a building is actually supposed to protect you from externalities. So how do we now consume, how do we now build our buildings in such a way that we are comfortable and actually do not spend a lot of money running the building? So for us, we need to do a lot of awareness creation. We need to understand the concept of energy consumption in building. And then at the federal level, of course, pushing that the states adopt this code, and also pushing that the federal government itself, in their own public buildings, ensure that they are energy efficient.
Excellent. Dr. Susanne, I know that in Austria, for instance, you've achieved a certain level of high energy efficiency buildings and behaviors. What are some of the behaviors that can lead to energy efficiency in buildings? So we've listened to architect Oyenuga talk about how to design the buildings, but there are behaviors and activities that we as citizens need to adopt to reduce.
I think you, in your introductory speech, you mentioned energy efficient appliances, and I think this is a very important issue. So it's about what do people choose, or what do they buy? And I think going for the most energy efficient product on the market is a very important contribution to energy efficiency in buildings, because you reduce the energy consumption for appliances which are in the building. In this regard, I think it's extremely important to have a labeling of these appliances, because it informs the consumers which appliances are more energy efficient than others. And in Austria, this approach was extremely successful. So each appliance must have a label displayed. And of course, when people see, we have this rating on a scale from A to G. So A is the most energy efficient, G is the least energy efficient. And if people see, okay, this one is A, in fact, it's not more expensive than a C or a B, then people go for the more efficient one. And so this created a really dynamism on the market. Meanwhile, in fact, we only have energy efficient products in our shelves anymore. Inefficient products are just gone by market forces.
And let me get back to you again on the policy side. One would think that what makes sense is for the government to either ban importation of inefficient appliances like air conditioning, bulbs, etc. But then the flip side is that these more efficient appliances are a bit more expensive than the largely inefficient appliances. What does the policy say in terms of what government should do to encourage more uptake of energy efficiency appliances, etc.?
So I will take it back again and say there's a renewable energy and energy efficiency policy, but we have developed a building energy efficiency code. And what this code says in terms of appliances, and the major appliances will be air conditioning, and specifies they call it the coefficient of performance, which actually just says how much the air conditioner consumes. So it actually, the code now says, for example, the COP of your air conditioner should not be less than 2.8. So from 2.8 upward, you should use those kinds of air conditioners. This means that we are able to regulate how much your air conditioner consumes, for example. So looking at that from a policy perspective, I think it's also a bit complicated to start to ban things without people understanding why you need to do it and without people understanding the benefits. So I think we approach it from a way where we say, okay, this is the kind of air conditioner you should have in your house. However, it's important to know why you should have it, and it's important to know that it's for your own interest, and that's it for now. Perhaps in future the government will now look at banning the inefficient systems, but I think it's more effective that we understand why we do these things and how it benefits us as a country.
Excellent. And Tola, in your presentation you focused more on new buildings. But most of us live in old buildings. And so if we buy into the energy efficiency doctrine and we want to make certain changes to the old building because we see that in the long run there could be cost savings or we could feel much better staying in those buildings, what are some of the tweaks, practical tweaks that can be done to these old buildings to make them a bit more energy efficient?
The practical tweaks we can do to the buildings is, one, we can change the lighting to high efficiency ones. That's the LED bulbs and different types. And we can shade our windows. If you look around most of the buildings in Abuja, the eaves don't do anything. That's the projection of the roof. But from people that built before we came around, the eaves were actually meant to shade the walls and shade the windows. So the light of the sun comes in, but the heat does not.
So the eaves are those little projections.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you notice your projection is not helping you and sun is still hitting your window, then you can include another shading at the level of the window if it fits the architecture of the building. Or we improve the glass itself and make them high efficient glazing.
Excellent. And on the building code, so now I want to get a bit into the building codes.
Okay.
Yeah?
Sorry, I forgot one thing. You know, we talked about reducing fuel consumption and fossil fuel consumption. If we think another way, instead of consuming fossil fuel, we could go into consuming renewable energy. And for already existing buildings, we could start implementing solar PV for water heating and for electricity.
Excellent, excellent. And in previous Nextier Power Dialogue sessions, we've talked a lot about renewable energy and how it can be applied. But I want us to get a little bit into the building energy efficiency codes. What are these codes? What is expected from the people in the real estate development sector? And how are they expected to adopt these codes? So they're not just great documents sitting on our laptops. Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I think it's exciting for real estate developers because, it's also a new way of doing things. In terms of the code, we regulate, I would say, we propose to regulate 4 or 5 major items, which Tola has spoke about in his session. And basically what we say is, what are the major areas through which heat comes into the building? So we try to regulate, for example, the window-to-wall ratio. We try to ensure that perhaps you can use insulation for the roof. And we look at
window-to-wall ratio. Like
yes.
What's
So
more window or less window?
no, okay. So for the code, we advocate for a 20% window-to-wall ratio.
Okay.
So and we did a lot of simulations and understood that with that percentage, you ensure that you have adequate daylight in your building, as well as you reduce the heat flow into the building.
What kind of ratio are we doing today on average?
Yeah, I would say it's not too far from the code. I would say like 30,
Okay.
40.
But that
Yeah.
makes a difference.
Yes, that makes a difference, a huge difference. Yeah.
Okay.
And just to say that, I like your question a lot. Just to say that the 20% window-to-wall ratio is not actually far from what is already existing.
Okay.
So we did not propose something that is way up there or something that is European standard. We proposed something that is doable, and we talked with a lot of architects and professionals, and they confirmed that this is possible in this country. And then we looked at lighting, and we didn't go the LED woods because people say it's very expensive, but instead we say, what if you actually design your building to have the adequate amount of light? You know, so it's not about using first an energy efficient light, which is actually very good, but perhaps you say it's too expensive. A lot of buildings are actually overlit. They are extreme.
Like this one?
I think so. So the idea is you have to think about using the adequate amount of lighting for your building. And then lastly, I mentioned earlier that we try to also propose the air conditioning standards to say that it should not exceed a certain coefficient of performance, or it shouldn't be less than a certain coefficient of performance. And then after all this has been in place, we say if you have money, then you can use PV or solar water heater. So we try to use it from a bottom-up approach. What are the simple things that you can actually implement? It doesn't cost you a lot of money to actually put the proper window-to-wall ratio. It doesn't cost you a lot of money to design your lights for your house in an appropriate manner. It just takes expertise to think about it, and it takes stepping back to think about it a bit more critically. And then insulation, which is actually the question mark in the code, but we have also talked a lot with professionals to see that there are insulation companies in Nigeria. So these are the major aspects that the code regulates.
One last question for you before I move to Susan. What does the code say about the roofs? You know, so I was talking with someone as we prepared for this, and they said that part of the problem with the heat in the buildings is that the way we construct our roofs, you know, they trap heat inside. So what does the code say? And I see you shaking your head, so maybe you don't agree. You know, but what does it say about the code? And then we'll come back to the architect.
In terms of the roof, it just regulates and says, okay, for your roof, you should use a certain level of insulation.
It doesn't say anything about the design and the height and...
So this is what we say, that a lot of times people in Nigeria want to build in such a way that it looks beautiful. So you have to deal with a lot of clients saying, look, I mean, I want to use this black roof and I want it this way, and you know, so I think what we looked at in terms of what we propose for the code is what is doable in terms of, you don't have to argue with your client a lot. You just tell your client, guy, I think you would need insulation. And he says, oh, what's that? And you say, like, it's a material that helps you to ensure that a lot of heat doesn't get into the building. And it's about also just explaining something that they would easily understand.
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
Tola, you shook your head.
Because immediately I remember, you know, we always learn from history so we don't repeat the same mistake. But if you remember your old buildings, anybody who can remember the eaves of the houses in the 90s, you always had this eaves projection and the little holes in them that birds would enter your roof void. Some will put nets there to avoid that. Those holes are there to make the heat that built up in the roof escape. But because we want the fancy concrete fascia, we block off all that, and then we build this tight space that is hot in your roof, and your air conditioner has to cool that because the heat comes into your room, and then you pay more for diesel, for electricity, just because you want one clean concrete. But you can have that, but just remember what you need to do to get the heat out. Now if you have the insulation, maybe the insulation might be expensive, and the client says that, why should I pay this to build a roof? Then the architect or the designer can start thinking, why not change the shape of the roof? If the roof becomes very efficient, then I don't need to go that high. Things can happen when you come with this insulation. Or you still have the same shape, you have it efficient, you begin to see that that space is usable. That's why some build attic, because you could have it for storage, you could change the design, it could be an extra room, or you go into that. But there's a lot that can be done in the spaces if it's insulated.
Excellent. So we keep our picked roofs there. That's fine. Okay. Susan, and we're going to open it up for questions and comments in a few minutes. But I wanted to know, what's the challenge? So we've done these building efficiency codes. We're talking to sector people. What are the key challenges we're seeing from the sector? And what are some ideas from your experience that we can use in ensuring that architects, builders, and developers adopt the code?
I think the code was developed in a way that it should be quite easy to implement because it's not that far ahead. So it's just, it's possible just to make that step. So what Ena said, so we say roof should be insulated, the window-to-wall ratio, if it can't be kept, then you should add shading. We put also the requirements for the air conditioning devices. So that's, for instance, we do not put any requirements for very energy efficient windows, for reducing the leakages, also not for the doors, also not for the, let's say, the outer walling. So, but this could be then, another step forward. What architect Tola explained, more or less, the explanation was very good, referring also to these very energy efficient components of the building envelope. But in my point of view, this is the next step. This is the future thing. First, I think it's very important that what is suggested in the BEC is properly implemented and people understand why they should do it. And this will also, I think also, it needs some time for industry also to go along, to carry industry along. And it will be very important from my point of view that also, that domestic products are available, produced in Nigeria, because this will create jobs.
Excellent. In fact, that's a question I had for Ene. So how well have we domesticated these building codes? I.e., have we suggested or recommended the use of local materials to improve efficiency? I don't want to date myself, but growing up, you saw mud houses that had no air conditioning, but even in the heat of the afternoon, they were cool. And that was because of the mud that was used in building. So how can we integrate some of these locally available materials to improve on efficiency? I don't know if the code looks into those.
Just also to add to what Susanna has said, the code for now is actually very simple. I would say it's ABCD.
Okay.
And we focus, like the window-to-wall ratio, you don't need material for that. You just need design experts to ensure that you use the appropriate window-to-wall ratio. And this helps to save a lot of energy and helps to avoid that your building is heated up. But I would say that for the code, the only aspect that you would need to think about in terms of materials would be the insulation. And we're talking with a lot of local companies who deal with insulation to see how we can ensure that local insulation materials are used. And of course, we're open to working with researchers to see the available local insulation materials in Nigeria and work with them.
Excellent. So we're going to open it up for audience participation, but keep thinking about this other question. Can we use thatch roofs for... is there a way we can improve thatch to use for roofs? We'll come back to that. But if we can pass the microphone.
I should start off by saying that I'm a lawyer. And I see, usually when new initiatives come up, there's always this talk about regulation, command and control, compliance. And one thing that gets me scared when I'm on the negotiating table if somebody tells me it is good for you. You understand? So I get worried. So when I get a discussion around energy efficiency, a new building code, it will heal the world, it almost immediately puts me on edge, almost defensive. So for me, I think it's a simple question. We have a power problem. We try to get alternative means of generating power, which is very expensive. So the economics is the efficiency not being used also in the context of economics. Because if you can demonstrate that it's cheaper to this process, then the code will almost immediately work without any form of coercion or code. So for me, really, is the numbers I want to see. What does it in terms of kilowatts per hour? What are we looking at if we implement the building code? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chima Moneke. I just want to add to what he has already said, because I already penned it down, and it's good that he has already started talking about it. But before then, I would like us to really understand the challenges of energy efficiency in Nigeria, the real challenges in adopting these energy efficiency practices in Nigeria. And one of them is the split incentives. Energy efficiency does not come at a conventional cost. It comes with an extra cost. So what is going to make the financier of a project put in that extra money? Mind you that, like one of the speakers said, you have the passive efficiency, you have the active efficiency. When you're constructing a building and you put in extra money, you actually do what we call passive energy efficiency. But you're not going to reap the benefits in terms of energy reduction cost. It is the people who are going to live in that building who are going to actually get the benefit of that investment. So how do you reconcile that? How do you compel such project developer or project owner to make that extra investment? Two is, I don't know if we really have a proven business model. We've all spoke about the benefit of energy efficiency in Nigeria. We've talked about how it can create jobs, how it can improve our energy security and all that. But I begin to wonder, do we really have a proven business model of energy efficiency projects in Nigeria? Such like, do we have a demonstration project? And we should bear at the back of our mind, but because of all these challenges, some of the developed world, the developed country, what they actually did was to use a special utility vehicle known as energy service companies. And how do they operate? They operate using what we know as energy performance contract. So they just come to a facility, you don't need to put any money down, they bring in their investment, they do the energy efficiency retrofit, and they make their money from the savings that accrue from such investment. Yeah. So have we actually proven that in Nigeria? If we have done demonstration project, have we actually taken the data analysis before the implementation of the project and after the implementation, and we can now begin to look at the facts and figures. This is how much we are spending before the implementation, and this is how much you've actually saved.
I do have two questions. When we had a breakthrough in South Africa, the breakthrough came through the architects. Before the Green Building Code came up in South Africa, the architects in South Africa, they've already specified the type of materials to use. So it was already embedded in the code. As a result, when we do design, we follow these guidelines that has been set up in the code. So we don't go out of it so that we can actually achieve these green building systems. In what I've received so far, there isn't any material. And I agree. Just as you know, and as you have also spoken about it, the issue of materials is a problem. How do you, as a body, intend to enforce these materials that will bring energy efficiency? And I want to explain to you that energy efficiency is not just about your glass, that's your window system, your ceiling. It entails quite a lot of things. From the design, that is where energy and architectural can bear me witness, because I was part of a Prime Tech. When we did Prime Tech, the only question that I have for the waste-burden guys is, tell me if I can use this insulation system that you have with blocks, that is the normal blocks that we use in Nigeria, not concrete.
My name is Sean Energy. I'm an electronic engineer. I was in Prime Tech for the first time in January 2015. And I observed a lot of wonderful designs going on. And I became curious. So today when you were speaking, I wanted to ask, how many Nigerians or Nigerian companies have the kind of design proficiency of prime tech? If we're going to ever have the kind of designs you're talking about in a massive quantity, we'll need local designers to have the proficiency. Of course, I remember very well that I was looking at the windows. I didn't understand what the windows were looking like until today. How many Nigerian engineers understand that there is a neon, I can't even remember the name, around Argon Field, whatever on the window? And like the moderator has said earlier, something about the mud houses being cool and the thatched houses. Which Nigerians are doing research around those things?
So my question is about the implementation. I know whatever you're doing, you have this, should I call it a fancy idea, which we've always had in Nigeria. So what will make this different? Because I know that in my village, people don't even know who an engineer is. They don't know who an architect is. They don't even procure the services of these people to build their houses. And they build their houses and they live there. So how do you now intend to pass this message across to them so they will understand and begin to actually implement? Because I know they don't even know anything about building code.
What I want to know is like, I kind of follow what Enya has been saying, but what we find out totally is like, we need education in terms of R&D. What's JB doing in terms of R&D? It's in general what's been said. In terms of R&D of raw materials that's going to be needed for the passive part of the whole spectrum. It is very important because we can't pay for, the bottom line, we cannot pay for imported goods.
Excellent.
We need employment here. We need GDP. We need the money. There's
so
raw
similar to his
materials.
question.
But I'm going to say that such research have been done in Eastern Europe. I've done research on this stuff. There are some even in solar. To me, if I'm going to sit down with you today, I can tell you we don't even need PV solar. We have an alternative already. But not many people know about that. And yet almost every home has that alternative.
Now, my question is the enforcement. What policy measures can actually be implemented to ensure that these building design codes are actually followed through? Can we remove the licenses of building developers? Can we institute jail time for them, etc.?
I think I would first of all like to address implementation. So what we did in the first place is to first of all ensure that actually this building energy efficiency code proposal is simple. So if you actually see it, you don't need to fight. That's one. And which is very important because someone said about fancy ideas. I don't think we had fancy ideas. Like really, with window to wall ratio, a lot of architects know how to do this. You learn it in school, so it's not fancy. And for air conditioners that mostly is used in Abuja or very hot climates, it's you go to a shop and you ask, I need these kinds of ACs, which exist in the market. However, we have taken the extra step to actually work with core implementers like the development control in Abuja. And that's actually the approach we would be advocating for, that at state level, there's a lot of awareness. But I think a crucial part which we must mention here is the approach we're taking in terms of mandatory versus voluntary. So in the first step, we are saying that these minimum energy requirements or this code will perhaps in the first 2 years be voluntary. So how simple, how else can it be simple? One is simple, two is voluntary at the beginning so that the market responds, so that we understand, is it so complicated? Are some people already saying this cannot work? And then when we notice it for 2 years, we can now say, okay, maybe what we see as simple is actually not simple in the first place. So it's not going to be mandatory for people at the beginning. We will watch how the market responds to these changes and then make it mandatory. Okay, then in terms of local materials, we're actually hoping that from events like Nextier, we can get in touch with people who do the research on locally available materials. And like I mentioned earlier, we'll be looking a lot on insulation materials because in the code, that's actually the core issue that deals with materials. And then in terms of pilot projects, so we started at the policy level And we are also hoping that this event would also help us to connect or network with a lot of private developers who are willing to test run this code in reality, because that's what we really need. Just to mention that we're working with one private developer who is here in the building, Mr. Okolo, who we're trying to pilot an energy efficient building with him in Katampe. So if that works, in cooperation with the development control, we would have a showcase.
That's a private developer?
Yes, that's a private development who approached us on using his site to construct an energy efficient building, and we would update you when we have core results on that. And then in terms of like how are people really prepared, Ina had mentioned in her opening speech that we're doing a lot of training. So we're training people in development control, we're training architects, NIA, we're training engineers, we're training the ministry. So there's a lot of training going on to just help people understand that energy efficiency is actually not a big deal. It's just us trying to construct our buildings in such a way that it makes sense to live in them. So I hope that some of your questions were already answered. And if you would like to meet us, to talk with me after the event, or get my cards, and then we can continue the discussion after that. But just to say that what we're proposing is not like a destination. It's where we're going to. So it's a process, and I think if we have that in mind, it helps all of us.
Excellent. There were a number of questions for Prime Tech around use of materials, R&D, business model, if you want to touch on that. Yeah.
I would like to start with clarifying one thing. Julius Berger, it's a private company, so they want to make money for themselves. All those R&D exist, but they would only put the output into their project, which the client is paying for. But for the country, in support of what the ministry is doing, that's why we are always in contact with GIZ and NESP. While they were developing the code, they gave us the draft, we gave our input, we met with other stakeholders, everybody argued their opinion, and engineers input, architects input, everybody, so that we can get to an end that the market can start with. The same thing started in Europe. They didn't start with this specification. They started with small specifications that the market can absorb. Then they start changing it, improving. That's how it works. So Julius Berger taking this initiative to build in this way is because we want to be in a position where we can talk like this at this forum. If there was no building like that, you won't even be talking about JB today if we were building as usual. So that's the thinking that led us here. And for us to go forward, I think we have to all agree that right now, the way we are today and the way our market is compared to everywhere else, we cannot become Dubai overnight. The market has to be ripe enough to transform Nigeria into Dubai. There has to be enough money in the system to make that happen. But before we get there, we have to change from where we are and start going there. We have to change our thinking. Like what I said, simple things about the eaves. The builder, I'm not blaming a builder. It's all happening in the market. But the person that built that steep roof and sealed that heat inside, does he need to go to Europe to know that it is hot in Africa? No. He doesn't need any extra thinking. We learned these things in school. We did climatology. We did building science. But now we are learning it again because nobody is using it in the market. We know it. We are just not doing it. Maybe, whatever the reason, we have to start talking about it and we have to start implementing. That's why I agree with the simple steps that the first draft of the Building Energy Efficiency Code will bring in. And then when people start seeing the benefits, then they can buy in. And I would like to, at this point, bring in an example, using PrimeTech. Let me give you the data we gathered. Initially, I mentioned about integrated design. For you to design in that way, you would design and make a model, like a baseline design. Let's call it business as usual. GIZ and NESP did the same thing when they looked at the market. They had a baseline design, then checked what could be done to modify it to start getting towards the 40% reduction in energy efficiency. The same thing with PrimeTech. There was a baseline design, and then they implemented, we implemented strategies of energy efficiency and sustainability. In doing that, the output reduced the energy needed by 24%. That was as a design in 2012. Now that the building is constructed, readings from the building management system is showing that we're actually saving 75% of the business as usual in reality. And that's because there was a baseline design, there was an improvement done on it, and now in the real life there are readings from the system. But if there are no projects, you won't see that. The first thing we did, the baseline design, business as usual, was also to international standard. And then there are standards for building sustainably. That's what we did. That's where we can now start thinking that the sizing of the M&E equipment was done to these European specifications. The equipment was bought from that zone. But that shows that there is a gap in this system and avenue for us to innovate. From the spec, you can see that the spec told you can reduce energy consumption by 24, you can achieve 24%. But reality is saying you can reduce by 75%. That means instead of building costly at reducing 24%, you can actually reduce the size of the equipment, and the initial cost that you would have been huge might also be reduced. But that involves integrated design, everybody looking at the model and saying what should be adjusted. But right now, the European market of all this equipment don't really provide specific African information. They just have general data on what the performance of the equipment should be. But if we don't start getting our readings from our own buildings, then we won't be able to adjust those data to be able to see that, yeah, for us, this is actually what we would use. For insulation, this is actually what we would use. She mentioned on insulation, and someone asked about insulation. At PrimeTech, we used foam glass. If foam glass was a car, it would have been the Rolls Royce of cars. But that's because of the standard JB has set for themselves. There was actually another company close by, the produce PE Industries. They're producing insulation. PE Industry, yeah. Some people know them, they are also building with it and things like that. You can actually use that, but the thickness you would use in this case will be different from if you are using foam glass. But the producer also has to guarantee that what they are producing would always be in the same consistency, and the property of what they write in their data sheets will be what you buy at the end of the day.
Yeah, excellent. Let's touch on the energy service companies, because you also mentioned it in your opening remarks. Do we have these in Nigeria? If not, would they work? Because my understanding is they're not supported by government or the private sector. They show up in my home and say, I can help you reduce your energy efficiency or improve your energy efficiency, and whatever cost savings I achieve for you, then you pay a fraction of it. I'm trying to see how that would work in practice here in Nigeria. I don't know if you've studied that. Yeah. I can comment on.
Maybe I can answer that, yeah. Or try to answer it. So the principle is that a private company implements energy efficiency measures in a house and gets a percentage of the savings. But that this is possible, the energy expenses of the past 3 years have to be known. So what they will do first is they will go and ask, so what were your energy expenses in the past 3 years? And then they will be able to assess, is this a potential business case where further investigation is useful, because the energy services company needs a certain volume, otherwise it's not a business case. So usually it's not really private homes, it's like office buildings or also public buildings, but it could be also like a large residential estate, for instance. That would be also possible. But I think the challenge here is that, you know, you have this estimated billing, and so not really energy related, no good energy consumption data, and that's the challenge, that for a business we need reliable data, which we don't have at the moment. And in my point of view, it will be very good to start with energy services companies in a pilot phase. But of course we would need a kind of mechanism to mitigate the risk, because the risk is just too high at the moment so that people will really decide to go into it. So what we need is something to mitigate the risk. We need to gain experience with it. We need demonstration projects, pilot projects, and we might also need framework conditions, from the legal point of view, to create security for investments for people who really want to go into that business. Yeah. So I think it's possible, but it's, as architect Tora said, market needs to develop, and that's also true for ESCOs, for energy services companies.
Excellent. We'll take another round of questions.
Okay, my name is Emmanuel Chukwu from the Ministry of Power. When we talk of energy efficiency, I think what we need right now is power. And besides that, we can go into energy mix, supporting, using energy efficiency to support the fossil fuel thing. Nigeria, I don't think we have any business with climate change thing, because one, except for this thing that is being emitted from crude oil, I don't think we have even met any percentage of climate change, whatever. So invariably, this should come at its own pace, while we should concentrate on using coal or other means of generating power to get what we want now.
Excellent. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Nextier Susanne. I didn't hear a lot about the direct rebound effect and its consequences. I mean, in introduction, Patrick made reference to 40% of the energy demand being, you could put it to better use if there were energy efficiency measures. Now, what if for instance, after these measures are put in place and people continue to use the savings accruing from this energy efficiency to procure even more energy, that's the direct rebound, in which case the multiple benefits of energy efficiency, which you talked about, will be offset. So what is your experience in Austria, and for you who's doing M&E on your current buildings, is there any data available on direct rebound?
Yeah, we're a bit confused now because, and then we'll be able to witness, during Habitat 3, the last Habitat 3 conference, the major problem was house deficiencies in Nigeria. We have a lot of house deficiencies. Now, these house deficiencies are not for middle class or for upper class. They are for lower class. Now, the problem developers are trying to solve is to make the cost of these houses come down as much as possible. Now, if we are being compelled to follow these codes now, the cost of the houses go up. So it means that new houses that we're going to be building are going to be costlier. It means that we are still not taking care of the house deficiencies. Now you're talking about a project at Katampe. How many people in Abuja lives at Katampe? Most people live in Maraba. Do you understand? So we need to come down to, just like you were saying, the cost of materials. If the houses that are energy efficient can't be at par or lower than what we have now, then I don't think we can afford it. Thank you.
My name is Isaac Oluwadia. I think this dialogue is need to have. However, I'm looking at it from the part of how can we say we want energy efficiency when people they don't even know the value. They don't see any value in it. Because until we have cost reflective tariffs and people are adequately metered, then as a consequence, they will now be looking at energy efficiency to be able to bring down their cost. But until we have that, energy efficiency will just be a cosmetic exercise. So let's advocate for, let there be adequate generation, let there be adequate metering, and let there be cost reflective tariff.
Thank you.
People will tend to tune down their usage.
My name is Mr. Briggs. I'm an architect, and quite a lot has been said, and it's shooting in all sorts of directions. Now, going back to one of the points that was made there, Nigeria is 190 million people, okay, roughly. Well, if you speak to a politician, it might be 80 million people. Now, of that volume, this audience here, or cross-section of this audience, represents barely 10, okay, at best 15%, okay? Now, if this 10 to 15% achieve 100% building efficiency, and that 89 or 90% is still doing things business as usual, it totally eclipses all the efforts. Now, what's my point? I think the codes are fantastic, but we also need to think about low-hanging fruits in how we do things, whether it's something as simple as planting trees in an environment, whether it's something as simple as building orientation, whether it's something as simple as even the choice of materials you use, no matter how unfashionable it seems to be. Because the honest truth is that some guy at the back talked about the fact that we've got a huge housing deficiency in the country. And if you are going to achieve efficiency, code style, across that deficiency, it's impossible. It's technically, it's going to take a miracle. So we need to, in as much as I think it's two directions. We need to come top down and bottom up. Top down is establish the codes and find a way to trickle them into the system progressively over time. But then bottom up, we need to also start to really aggressively reorientate the mindsets of people to start doing things completely differently, because it's going to be really, really impossible to meet. Just a thought.
There is something I noticed about the dialogue. The people that relate directly to electricity consumers are the discos. I don't know if any disco is present in the house today. That's one. Then also the future professionals that will take a look into the issues we are raising here at the universities, even if they are funded or not, undergraduate students. I don't know if undergraduate students are invited for this dialogue, undergraduate and graduate students in energy engineering. Then also, I also point to the fact that ICT solves a lot of problems in the world. In all the solutions proffered so far, ICT has not been mentioned. And I know currently in the world today, there's something called the Internet of Things, with which you can control a lot of things. Even you don't have to force people to do certain things. Even with the electricity you supply to them from the existing lines, you can incorporate power line communication systems, and you can be able to manipulate a lot of data and figures. Sure. Please, I want us to have a broader perspective. I'm just making common sense. Thank you.
When Susan was speaking, I saw that Austria focused on equipment manufacturing, as well as the major advantage was to create job, as well as return on investment on those materials. Now, I want to ask, what is NESP doing to see that local manufacturers, most especially on renewable energy, their products, are encouraged to ensure that we cut costs? Because why people are not embracing renewable energy is because of the high cost. But I think this cost will go down if we look at improving research in materials locally, as well as seeing how these materials can be manufactured locally, and this will cut down cost. I want to know what NESP is doing in this regard.
I would just want to address some of the developers who say that energy efficiency is costly and already we cannot afford houses. And for me as a person, if I ask myself why would I want to construct an energy efficient building as a Nigerian? If I do not have meters, or we need more power, so energy efficiency is the least of my problems. But I think considering I live in Abuja and I know how frustrated I get in my house when there's no light, and how hot I feel, and how I'm just looking for the next solution, like I can't on my AC because there's no light, or my gen cannot take my AC. These simple things that reduces productivity. Just to mention, a few days ago I was sitting with an international colleague, and she had to leave the office to go downstairs to take some fresh air, because she said, I'm not productive. I'm feeling like it's not making sense here. I know that in Nigeria, we like to feel like I can stay in the heat even if it's 40%, I don't care, But I think it's important that we begin to research on how these things affects our productivity. Like you don't understand when you stay in a temperature that is 29 and 30 all day, and you achieve nothing at the end of the day. You don't connect the dots. So it's important that we have to start connecting the dots and start to think of ourselves as human beings who deserve to live in comfortable buildings. So I think I will take that as an ordinary Nigerian. I will take that approach. So for me, it benefits me and my health. And I always tell the story of I have 2 kids, and we used to live in a house that my kids always fall very ill. Like, they always had this respiratory problem. And then I was wondering, what is happening? Do they have? And when I go to the doctor said, do you have the history of, what do you call this? Asthma. And I'm like, no. I call my parents, do we have asthma? And my husband and I tried to do a lot of, like, what is happening here? But then we noticed that the neighbor also, her kids were always getting ill. And so when we started to connect the dots, we were like, is something wrong? And it's a new building, but the indoor air is horrible. And we moved. And seriously, it worked like magic. They stopped getting ill. So I think that the benefits of energy efficiency beyond energy security is also for our good, that we are able to function well as human beings and enhance our productivity. Having said that, I also agree with them that we have to now put in a lot of pressure for the government to work on metering, because of course you can't manage what you can't measure. So it's important that monitoring is a key part of what we advocate for. Then in terms of also the extra cost on energy efficiency, that's why we need pilot projects, because we need a lot of data to prove that, okay, this is the percentage that it's maybe 10% more than I would have constructed it in the first place, which we call business as usual. So if we are able to get a lot of data on as to how much increase compared to the business as usual, and then we put our data together, there are lots of international climate funds that are available, like the NAMA facility or like the Green Climate Fund, that are willing to support developing countries to cover cost of energy efficiency measures. But first, we must have the right policy framework, we must have demand, we must indicate to international funding that we are willing to integrate energy efficiency into our business as usual. So I hope that some of my answers address some questions.
I'll start from the question on climate change. You might think climate change, global warming is not affecting us, but the way it's affecting us is different. And the way it's affecting us here is the rise of the sea level. There was a report in Lagos of some 100 or over 100 communities along the shore that have been buried because of the rising level of the sea. But we are in Abuja, we don't care. But how important is Lagos to Nigeria? How important is the east, southeast, south-south, where oil is being produced to Nigeria? When those places are affected, when the land mass is reduced and a lot of people have to shrink into smaller regions, then you know what will happen. They start fighting for resources. So if these things are allowed to go on this way, it will definitely affect us. Sure. It might not affect us in our environment getting hotter, but it will definitely, it has its ripple effects. And another one is right now, Africa does not, African market does not command a major share of world economy. That said, the major economies have decided that sustainability is the way forward, and they are going there. You know the rule of 20-80. 20% efficiency gives 80% of the output. So if the big money is going sustainable, what do we have? If we don't join, they will still end up producing those sustainable products and then selling it to us. So why not start changing our own system? Either build like that or begin to find out how we can do it locally. It's the same thing. We just have to go in an efficient manner. Light is not available. Power is not available. Right now, the maximum that has been produced, according to the Minister of Power, said last year that the maximum that was produced, as we saw, was 5,000 megawatts. That the target, the market needs 17,000. That means we need to produce 3 more times of that. But going by the target the ministry is setting and NESP and GIZ are trying to achieve, they are trying to achieve 40% reduction in energy consumption of houses. And housing uses most of this 5,000 megawatts. So if we can at some point reduce that consumption by 40%, automatically that means more people would be able to use the 5,000. And the minister also said that the strategy for energy is incremental power. We have to keep stepping up. So right now, based on projection, we have 5,000, we need 17,000. what year will we get to producing 17,000? But if we reduce consumption by 40%, that means we only need to get to 7,000
for it to feel like 17,000.
Exactly, for it to feel like 17,000. You see, you have to look into it. It might, concerning the buy-in from developers, that's why integrated design approach is important. You need to see the model. No, I don't mean physical, the computer models, but you need to understand where the costs are, what's driving this cost up, and how can we reduce it. That's engineering, that's architectural problem you have to solve at that stage.
Sure.
If your engineers and your architect cannot even help in identifying that problem, then you're not using the right professionals. Sorry to say.
Sure.
So there's a lot to do. We have to know the problem and how do we solve it. We can't just be, government has to do this, someone has to do this. We need to start it, and then the information, the data starts coming in. You said, concerning you were talking about making common sense. I understand that, but common sense is not common. The roof heat, people built without going to school. They built to extract the heat. And we that have gone to school, we are not doing that. What do you need? Do you need magic to do the right thing? Can you help that situation? We have the information. We just have to. If you know it, do it. If you can do it, teach other people how to do it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think there are a few questions we didn't touch on. There was a direct rebound. I'm not sure.
No, there's no data for that.
Yeah. There's no data.
Except you can come and see what we have actually gotten from our BMS, if that helps in, we can discuss on that.
There were questions on how can the housing code solve the housing deficiency. I'm not sure that's what the code was set up to do. There was a question in the back about solving the 17 million housing deficiency.
I think for us, the idea is we already have a 17 million housing deficit. So if Nigeria is actually going to provide that many houses, then you know that the energy consumption will. So, I mean, we have to begin to prepare for that.
Excellent. And there was a question, and I think that question was actually for next year. Are there discos in the room? I don't know if there are discos in the room, but they were invited. But a disco is in the room. Students and graduate students, I take that, and what I take away from that is that probably part of our own CSR will be to invite and probably sponsor some of these students to attend this event. So I hope Emeka, who is responsible for handling that, is listening, because mine is to make the pledge and then he has to do it. So probably next time we'll have some students in the room. It's a great idea, and we take that. We're close to the end of the program, but I still want to give the gentleman an opportunity to share with us why he reached out to NESP. 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Good evening, all. My name is Builder Okolo Joshua. I started with GIZ by participating in the baseline study on energy efficiency in building in Nigeria. I contributed 2 chapters to that document, bioclimatic architecture and housing finance, which is forming part of what is being used to develop these codes. I became very interested in the project when Dr. Susan first contacted me when she was doing her scoping mission. And I told her I've been having that urge, that desire in my heart, that as a builder, we should be able to do buildings in a different way that would make us save energy in our buildings, because we don't even have it. So I told her that if it comes to the stage where they want to do a pilot project, I would like to participate.
Excellent.
So that was when I came in, and we've gone through a whole lot of training. As a matter of fact, what we have been taught that made us have the building we have now that we want to construct is far higher than what is a standard in the code. It's what's it called now? Performance standard. That is what we have. And during the process of the workshops and training that we went through to be able to arrive at that, we discovered that shading does a whole lot, makes a whole lot of difference to reduction in energy in building. We had 4 different scenarios, and we narrowed down on the 3rd one, which gave us something in the region of 7 to 10% increase in construction above the business as usual.
which by the time we compare it to what we are going to save in 5 years from energy we are consuming, was a win case. So we decided we will take it up. So we are perfected the design. We were sending them to FCD. Thank God, even last week when I was part of the people that they were training on this basic one, and I told them that I've advanced above this one, but I sat with the development control people, and at the end of the day, they agreed that this is what you need to do, that we can give you approval quickly for this your project to take off. So we are working on that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Because that's probably the business case that we're trying to establish, that there's probably about a 10% increase in construction cost, but over a 5-year period, you will recover the 10%. You know, so we're interested in staying close to that project to track those numbers with you, if you don't mind, and probably we can develop a policy brief out of it to share with the broader public. But just to say thank you to everyone who's come to spend these 2 hours with us. We don't take it for granted that you could have been doing so many other things, but you chose to honor us with your presence. Please join me in giving a round of applause to the panel. We also want to thank the Nigeria Energy Support Program for partnering with us to bring this program to you. We want to thank the John T. and Catherine D. MacArthur Foundation for the support they're giving to Nextier Power to keep this program going. And to say that we're going to have the June session of the Nextier Power Dialogue is going to hold on Tuesday, not Wednesday, Tuesday, June 20th. The reason for Tuesday is we looked on Google Calendar and it appears that Eid al-Fitr is going to be on Thursday, the 22nd. And we don't want to get caught up in the exodus that happens in Abuja. So we decided to put it on Tuesday. But we'll still track the calendar as we get closer. But for now, it's probably going to be on Tuesday. And we'll be looking at the cost of delivering power. It's an interesting study we've done in partnership with Heinrich Böll Foundation, and we're going to share some of the data from that. As you registered, we gave you a little survey, value for money survey. We hope you've had some time to fill it out. Please leave it on the seats, and we'll pick it up afterwards. We also gave you a survey, an evaluation of this program, because we would like to see ways to improve on what we do. So if you can also help us fill out that survey, we'll appreciate it. I believe there's still some food and drinks downstairs, so please don't leave. One of the reasons why we do this is for networking. So if you leave here with less than 10 business cards, you've done yourself a disservice. Thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you again in June.